Hello everyone, in this video we are going to create a responsive navigation bar by using Alpine.js and obviously with HTML and CSS. So this is the navigation bar. In smaller size display, the hamburger icon shows up, and if we click it, the icon changes to cross icon and the menu item shows up. Again, if we click it, it goes away. So this is a simple project and let's get into it. So this is the starter file. I have added the Alpine.js CDN and the style.css. In the style.css, I have added a little bit of reset and also added a font. So let's create the markup first. We are going to use a nav tag. Let's give it a class of navbar so we can use it later. Now inside it, let's give it a brand or the things that will be at the left side. Let's give this a class of brand and you can put whatever you want. I'm going to put my YouTube channel name. Now after that, let's put the buttons in here. So we are going to add two different type of buttons. The first one will be for opening of the navigation item and the second one will be the cross item. So I'm going to use a SVG icon library like hero icons. This is very easy to use. The URL is heroicons.com. so let's search for bars and I'm going to use this one. Just click the copy SVG and it is going to copy it as SVG. Now let's paste it inside the button. I'm just going to comment it out because otherwise the opening and closing button or icon gets messed up. You will be confused later. So open icon and after that let's paste the SVG. Now let's also add the close icon. This is going to be a simple cross, so let's again go to the heroicons.dev and search for maybe X. Okay, I'm just going to copy this one as SVG. Now let's paste it in here. Let's use the beautify to align the code. We are done with our hamburger icon. This is the two icons in here. It looks ugly. Okay, after finishing of the button, let's create another div with the class of nav and inside it let's add the nav list. So let's use another list. Let's give it a class of nav item. Inside the another list, let's add some list item and I'm going to give it a class name of nav item. Actually, let's change the class name for another list. It should be nav list. Now inside it, let's use the anchor tag. I'm just going to put a hash to make it blank and let's add some dummy navigation items. Let's just copy this. Okay, one more time. Fine. Now let's change the text to something else like blog. Then projects. Then maybe org. Actually it kinds of overlap, but it doesn't matter. It is just for the demo purpose, nothing else. Content. So we are done with our markup process. Now let's make it 100%. Now let's move on to the style.css and style the navigation item. So at first it got the class of navbar. It got the class of brand, then here goes the button and this div has a class of nav. Okay, so we are going to align it properly. So the brand here will be at the left side and the items here will be at the right side. So we can achieve it by using the flexbox property. So let's target the navbar and give it a display of flex. Now it looks like this. So how we can actually make it further from each other by using the justify content. The justify content works along the flex axis, which is this axis. So we want it the space between, so that available space should be between these two elements. So let's do that. Let's give it a justify content space between. Now all the available free spaces is between this element and this element. So inside the nav div, we have added the display flex property on this div, right? Sorry, it is the nav element, not a div. So inside it there are three elements: the brand, then here comes the button and the navigation item. So here is the half of the available space and here is the rest half. It doesn't actually matter because we are going to make it hidden anyway. So let's target the button and style it. So we want the background to be transparent. Background color should be transparent. There should not be any background. Let's also remove the border by using border none. Okay, we cannot see it, but it is actually here. This is pretty small. So what we are going to do is we are going to make it bigger. So we are going to target the SVG inside the button and let's give this a width of 30 pixels. Okay, it is pretty big. Let's make the color to white, but before that we are going to give this a navbar a background color, otherwise we cannot see that. So let's give this a background hash on 8273E. This is kind of a bluish color. Now if we give this a color of white, we can see the icons. Now what we are going to do is we are going to make it display none, but before that let's make the cursor pointer. So whenever we are going to hover on that, it should be pointed as this little hand icon. Now let's make it display none. So we are going to make it display inline block in our next part. Okay, so let's target the navigation bar, and we cannot see any text in here because they are kind of black. So let's change the color to white. Now we can see that. So let's also use the align items center to make it center in the horizontal axis. Now they are center. Okay, so let's make the position fixed at the top, but if we make it fixed, it is going to look like this. So what we are going to do is we are going to give this a width of 100%. Now it should take the entire width available. Let's also add a padding of 20 pixels. Now it should have a little bit gap all around it. Let's also make the top to 0, otherwise this is going to scroll. Okay, fine, we are done with it. Now let's move on to the next thing, which is the nav items. So let's target the nav item and let's target the anchor tag first because we cannot see it. Let's change the color to FFF white. Let's make the text decoration none, so there should not be any underline. Let's also add some padding, like let's make it blank for now. We are going to fill this up later. Now before that, let's target the nav item. Okay, so the list item got a class name of nav item, and the list items are by default the block level element. That's why they are each on the separate line, and we don't want that for this case. So let's target the nav item and give it a display of inline block so that they puts in the same line. Now we can add some padding with the anchor tag. So at top and bottom, let's add 7 pixels, and left and right, let's use 10 pixels. So we have added the padding with the nav item A, or with the anchor tag, because we are going to put some hover effect with that. So let's add a hover effect, and we are just going to change the background color to a bluish color. Let's use hash 0072FF. Okay, it looks better, but we can also add a little bit of border radius to make the corners rounded, like 4 pixels. Also, if you want, we can add a little bit of transition. So let's do that. Transition background color 0.3 second is fine. It will be a subtle animation here. Okay, I think it's good. Actually, it's not. The spelling was wrong. Okay, that's fine. Now let's move on to the responsiveness. Let's make it smaller, and we are going to break it down in, let's use 600 pixels. We can use the media query, media only screen, and let's give it a max height of 600 pixels. So whenever the skin gets below 600 pixels, the code inside it should apply. So now we are going to show up the button. So let's target the button and make it display inline block. Now you can see it. The 2 buttons is visible when the display size is smaller than 600 pixels. Okay. So let's also target the navbar. So this is the nav, and we don't want it to be visible in here, right? In a smaller size display, we are going to make it invisible. It is going to show up only when we are going to click the buttons in here. But let's comment this out for now and style the nav first. So we are going to give it a position of absolute. But as you know, in order to give it a position of absolute, we need a relative element. So the parent should be position relative. So we are going to position this nav relatively to this parent element, which is the navbar. So let's go up and add a position of relative with the navbar. Now we can go here and position this nav, which is the child element of the navbar, relatively to the parent element. Okay. So let's give it a background color of this one, the blue. Now from top, let's push it down. But how much should we push it, right? So there is a way to understand that. If we can just hover on it, okay, let's inspect. See, the height of it is 59 pixels, okay. So we can use 59, but let's put some gap in here, because otherwise it will look ugly. We are going to modify it if needed later. So let's give this a OID of on 100%, so it should take the entire OID. But one thing we should do first is to make the list items which got a display inline block later, but we are now going to make it display block. So it should be at the same line. Let's delete the inline, so only block. Let's beautify this. Okay, now it looks like this. So from top it should, okay, we are going to change this later, but it is 100%. From left it should be 0. Okay, now it looks better. Let's also give this a border at the top to maybe 1 pixel solid and gray, a little bit of border. Now let's target the navigation item, which is the nav item and the anchor tag. We are going to add some different type of paddings in here. So top and bottom, let's add 20 pixels, and left and right maybe 30 pixels. but we cannot see it because the navigation item or the anchor text here is a inline element. So we are going to make it display block, so it should be a block level element. Now we can apply our hover effect on that, and the padding is also going to be applied on the anchor text. Now let's go and make the button display inline block so we can see it. Now let's create two defined class. So one is going to be height. We can name it whatever we want. Let's make it display none. So if you want to hide something, we are going to use the Alpine.js and add the class with that element. And let's create another class to show, and we are going to make it display inline block. So if we add this class with the element, this is going to be hidden, and if we add this class with anything, it is going to be displayed. So that's the principle. Now let's move on and add the Alpine.js in our project. So this is going to be the Alpine component. I'm just going to use the X data here, and let's create an object, and inside it let's name a variable, maybe is open, and initially let's make it false because the navigation item will be false initially. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add these classes based on the condition. So if the is open is false, the navigation item should be hidden, and if it true, then it should show up. And we are going to change the value based on the click on these two icons, right? So now let's target the nav. It should be hidden if the is open is false. So we are going to use the X bind, and we are going to bind a class, right? So is open, and if it's true, then we are going to add the class of show, and if it false, sorry, we need to put a okay, if the value of the is open is false, then we are going to add the class of height. Let's save, and it should be gone because the value of is open is false. If we make it true, let's save, and it is going to show up because it is going to add the class of show with the class of nav, and you can actually see it here. Okay, this is it. It has the class of show with the nav in here, but if we make it false, it has added the class of height, which makes it display none, and it disappears. So we are going to change it based on the click. So we are going to click on the SVG icons, right? This one is for opening the navigation item, and this one is for closing the navigation item. So we are going to use the event of click. So X on click, X on click, and on click we are going to target the is open and make it true because this is the open icon. So when we are going to click it, we want to open the navigation bar, which will make the value of the is open true, and therefore it will add a show class with the navigation bar and make it display inline block, and it shows up. So let's click the open icon, which is this one. It shows up. Now again we want to change the value to false if we click the close icon. So let's make it false. Let's click here, it is going to show up, and if we click the cross icon, it is going to disappear. See, it has added the show class, and if we click it, it has added the height class. But we don't want to display the open icon when it is already open, right? So this is actually kind of the same thing, but before we get into that, we can use the shortcut for X on, like @. This is the shortcut for xon. It is going to work, and the colon should be removed, like just the @ and for the bind here we can just remove the x bind and it is going to be fine. So this is the shortcut for Alpine. We can use just the clone for x bind and @ for the x on directive. Now let's hide it, and this is going to be very similar to this. We can just copy this from here. So when the navigation bar is going to be displayed, we don't want the close icon here. So let's just paste it in here, save. So now only the open button shows up. If we click it, the cross icon shows up, but the opposite should be happened with the open icon. I'm just going to copy this and paste it in here, but it should be the opposite of it, right? Okay, now let's see. It works perfectly. So what we have done here is, when the is open is true, that means the navigation bar is already displaying, so the menu bar is opened already, so we don't want to see the open icon. So the is open, so if the is open is true, we want this button to hide, and if the is open is false, we want it to show up. The opposite things goes with this button, which is the cross icon or the close icon. If the is open is true, we want it to show, and if the is open is false, we want it to hide, right? So this is the navigation bar, and in the next project we are going to create some tabs with Alpine.js and HTML and CSS. So see you there.